There are people in your life who seem completely normal. They talk like everyone else. They smile at the right moments. They even seem kind. So you don't question it. You just interact with them again and again, not realizing something is slowly shifting. Because here's the truth most people miss. Narcissism doesn't show up loudly. It shows up in patterns, subtle ones. And if you don't recognize those patterns early, you don't notice the damage until it's already happened. 1. They make everything somehow about them. You could be talking about your day, something that mattered to you, something you actually wanted to share, and within minutes, the conversation shifts. Now it's about them, their story, their experience, their opinion. And at first it feels normal, like maybe they're just relating, but it keeps happening, again and again, until you realize something uncomfortable. You're not really being heard. You're just a starting point for their attention. This isn't random. Psychologists describe this as a strong need for self-centered validation. Their focus naturally pulls everything back to themselves because that's where their sense of importance comes from. Now here's what you do instead. Don't fight for attention. Just pause. Let the silence sit for a second and bring the conversation back. That's interesting, but what I was saying was, you're not being aggressive. You're just not disappearing in the conversation anymore. 2. They seem charming at first, then something feels off. When you first meet them, they feel different, engaging, confident, easy to talk to. They say the right things. They seem to understand you quickly, and it pulls you in. But after some time, something shifts. The warmth becomes inconsistent. The attention becomes selective. And now you're left trying to figure out what changed. This is often a pattern of idealization followed by subtle withdrawal. Psychologically, it creates attachment because your brain starts chasing the version of them you saw at the beginning. Now here's the adjustment. Stop chasing the first version of someone. Pay attention to who they are consistently, not occasionally, because consistency is where the truth shows up. 3. You feel drained after interacting with them. Nothing obvious happened, no argument, no clear conflict, but afterward, you feel tired, mentally heavy, slightly off. And the confusing part is, you can't explain why. That's because you were likely dealing with subtle emotional pressure, small interruptions, shifts in tone, unspoken tension. Your mind might ignore it, but your body doesn't. Now here's what matters. Start trusting that feeling. If you consistently feel drained after someone, that's information, not overthinking. Distance yourself slightly and observe. Do you feel better without that interaction? That answer tells you everything. If you're someone who notices these subtle patterns in people, in behavior, in energy, this channel is built for you. 4. They rarely take responsibility. When something goes wrong, pay attention. It's never really them. There's always a reason, an explanation, someone else involved, or somehow it becomes your fault. Not directly, but subtly. And over time, you start questioning your own perspective. This pattern is linked to ego protection. Admitting fault would damage how they see themselves, so the responsibility gets redirected. Here's what you do. Don't argue to prove them wrong. Just stay grounded in your version. That's not how I experienced it. No long explanations, no emotional reaction, just clarity. 5. They use kindness, but it feels conditional. They can be nice, very nice, helpful, supportive, generous, but there's a pattern. That kindness often comes with a shift later, a reminder, a subtle expectation, a change in tone if you don't respond the right way. Now it doesn't feel like kindness. It feels like leverage. This is a form of controlled generosity, where giving is tied to influence. So here's the shift. Accept actions, but don't feel obligated by them. Gratitude doesn't mean compliance. You can appreciate something without giving up your autonomy. 6. You find yourself explaining simple things too much. Conversations feel longer than they should. You're clarifying, repeating, trying to be understood, but it never feels settled. There's always something slightly misunderstood, or twisted, or redirected. This can come from subtle conversational control patterns where clarity is never the goal. Control is. Here's what you do. Stop over-explaining. Say what you mean once, clearly, and let it stand. If they choose not to understand, that's not something you fix by saying more. 7. Something in you feels on edge around them. You can't fully relax, even when things seem fine. There's a small tension, a quiet awareness, like you're constantly adjusting yourself without realizing it. That's your instinct picking up on inconsistency. Your mind might not label it yet, but your body already has. And this is the most important part. Don't ignore that feeling. Most people don't miss the signs. They just don't trust themselves enough to act on them. None of these signs are loud. That's why they're easy to overlook. But they're not random. They're patterns. And once you start noticing them, you stop getting pulled into dynamics you don't fully understand. Because now you're aware. Which one of these did you recognize instantly, but never really questioned before?